And welcome into episode 2 of the Pitcast. I'm Ben Kinney, joined by Zach Case. Zach, how are you?
Hey, what's up, Ben? I'm doing good. Just finished up another final exam because we're in finals week, so I'm just cooking along with those. I'm ready for the semester to be done.
Yeah, you and me both, believe me. All right, taking a look at the rundown for today, we're going to take a look at the results from Friday night's Thunder at Martinsville. Friday Night Thunder at Martinsville. Kyle Larson making his return to racing with the Outlaws Dirt Series. The Pro Invitational Series going back in time and running at North Wilkesboro, and mourning the loss of Leroy Wood of Wood Brothers Racing. Also, NASCAR Heat 5 set to come out in just a few months, and the updated plans for Chicagoland Speedway, as well as realignment to the 2020 schedule and a preview of this weekend's race at Darlington. So let's hop right into our first topic, a recap of Friday Night Thunder from Martinsville, the 125-lap race around the paperclip. What were your thoughts on that, Zach?
Well, just to recap, Jejski really dominated the race. He sat on the pole. We talked about him a little bit. He raced in the Homestead race for the Pro Invitational Series before they came up with this Saturday Night Thunder deal. So he would dominate at Martinsville. Josh Berry was another one to look at. Anthony Alfredo was a standout as well. Josh Berry, though, was chasing Ty, got taken out with under 20 to go while he was in second place. So Ty just kind of ran away with this. One thing to highlight, Ty Jejski, he races for Nice Motorsports in the Truck Series right now. We talked about how good he is on iRacing. 3 wins in the ARCA Series during 2019. And then a top 10 at Iowa in the 2018 Xfinity Series for Roush Fenway Racing. The driver is focused more on his late model stuff as of late, but I think Ty did a great job. This was his first win, so congratulations to him. And I have a couple more drivers if you want to dig down deep into it, if we want to talk about it. I don't know, what are
Let's
your
do it.
thoughts?
Yeah. I thought Jejski, it was really a coming out for him big time. You know, he's been fighting for this first win for a long time, and it's been well-deserved.
Yeah, he talked about in his post-race interview about how he really hasn't put a complete race together. And I think Friday night's race really showed that he could put a complete race together, and I'm happy for him that he finally got that win under his belt.
Absolutely. Now, the other notable results from this race, Zach, you have those?
Yeah, I just want to talk about a few other drivers. Donnie Lei, I don't know if you know who he is, but he's a wheel and modified driver who also used to run part-time in the Truck Series. And as of late, he hasn't really been racing, but he came out of retirement to race in this series, and he's really shown a lot of success on the short tracks, of course. So just to bring him up, he's a more older driver. Alex LeBay is another one. He's a full-time driver in the Pinty Series. Just to point out that there's more than just Xfinity drivers in this series, but he races Xfinity full-time this year and is highlighted with a 6th place finish in the Roval. And then back to Josh Berry, who hasn't really been in the NASCAR light as of late. He races late models in the Cars Tour. I haven't really heard a lot about that series, but I know it's a late model series in the South. He races for Junior Motorsports in that series, and he was the 2017 champion. So those drivers are the guys I kind of looked for in that series. We talked about Anthony Alfredo. He got a win at Dover. Those guys really just to show their skill on the iRacing. I really like to see that from those guys. But that's basically what I had to sum up Friday Night Thunder.
Now, also going on this weekend, a return to racing for Kyle Larson. Now, we talked about last week. Obviously, it's been just about a month since the incident that occurred with him using a racial slur during the iRace event. He has since completed his required sensitivity training course, made his return at Knoxville, Iowa, in the 30-lap feature race, in which he battled against another familiar name that we haven't really heard in a while, Casey Kane. It's a little bit of a throwback. David Gravel pulling out his first win of the season. What were your takeaways from that race, Zach?
Well, unfortunately, I didn't get to watch the race. I just didn't feel like I didn't really want to pay the $22 for the pay-per-view. But he drove the 57 car for a family friend that he knows out in California. Many of his sponsors have left him due to the ordeal, but Tarlon and Son Industry and then Finley Farms stayed with him. They were on the car. I saw something about Lucas Oil being on the car, but they're not affiliated with him anymore. So I just want to point that out there. One thing that I have seen is NASCAR has still kept him suspended, even though he has done that training. Just something to see, even though NASCAR wanted him to do that. And then another thing in the article I was reading, either from MRN, was about how Tony Stewart, of course, supports him in his return to NASCAR if he does want to return. Uh, Obviously, we know the situation that Tony Stewart went through back at Canandaigua Speedway years ago in his own sprint car. But I think Tony Stewart will definitely want Kyle Larson to return to NASCAR. We'll see if it does happen. But I think Larson did pretty well. I think he finished 10th in his first race back, and then I think the World of Outlaws series has more races coming up that definitely you guys can watch online. So I think it was a good race though.
Now, do you think that we will see Larson return to a full-time Cup ride in the future, or do you think that this is the end of his career? I heard, I don't remember where it was on. I believe it was on Dale Jr.'s podcast, The Daily Download. I don't remember who, but he was mentioning that, things like this happen sometimes, and a lot of times down the road, the drivers will return and the sponsors will come back. Do you think in this case that'll happen?
Yeah, I think eventually it will. In reality though, I think short term, he has been quoted to say that he wants to get a World of Outlaws title. He definitely has the stuff to do that with being on his own racing team and having his own funding for that. So I could see him doing that in the short term, but I think long term he definitely wants to get back into NASCAR. I have found the next race date, Friday, May 22nd at Federated Auto Parts Raceway. That's the next World of Outlaw Sprint Car Series race. But I definitely think short term he's going to stay in the dirt racing world, but I could see him coming back full time in NASCAR.
All right. Now, switching over to the iRacing Series this past weekend, the Pro Invitational Series going to the North Wilkesboro Speedway. Of course, Dale Jr. had a lot to do in fixing that speedway up so it could actually be scanned into iRacing. And I saw a video of the process that they do to actually get the speedway scanned in as accurately as possible. And it was actually really interesting. This version of the track they put into iRacing is a 1987 version of the track, was released to iRacing subscribers, I believe, yesterday, which would be Monday. We film on a Tuesday. One thing to note, though, no drivers from Hendrick, Penske, or Ganassi Racing. Why do you think that is, Zach?
I later saw in reports that through Twitter that was just due to other sponsorship things that they are committed to. I know Brad Keselowski reported that. He sent a tweet out about that, confirming that. So thanks to the Twitter world for finally figuring out my thing that was the main concern for me, because obviously we didn't have William Byron or drivers like Kurt Busch too, because Ganassi didn't race either. But those entries didn't. They kind of. I wouldn't say they hurt the skill level of the field, but it was definitely noted that, okay, obviously you don't have William Byron Racing, who won 3 races out of the 7 so far. But yeah, just because of sponsorship deals, I know, of course, it's the week of Darlington, so teams are preparing for that. But another thing that you talked about, the 1987 version of the track, I was really confused off the bat just because I noticed the short pit road that North Wilkesboro had in the game. So I was like obviously confused because North Wilkesboro right now currently has that long pit road that wraps around turns 3 and 4. But I'm glad they noted that eventually. But Denny Hamlin would get his second win. He would get the opener in Homestead, and then of course he would get the finale here in North Wilkesboro. I thought it was a great race. I don't know what your thoughts are, but I wish we could have more of this in the future.
Absolutely. And I mean, just iRacing in general is just a great way for drivers, who maybe some drivers, they can't get out to their local track or they don't have a local track, and they utilize this to train and develop a little more. So, especially with the publicity that this has gotten over the last few weeks with everything going on and not having Cup Series races on the schedule, this has been a great replacement for that for the short term. The last month now, month and a half that they've been doing this. Now, 7 races to be exact. That's how many iRaces have been completed. So this is the end of the series with NASCAR set to return on Sunday, this coming Sunday, May 17th, at Darlington. William Byron obviously dominating, as you mentioned earlier, winning 3 of the 7 races. What were your other thoughts on this series as a whole?
Yeah, William Byron coming out with 3 wins: Bristol, Richmond, and Dover. Bowman coming with a win at Talladega, and then Timmy Hill at Texas. Timmy Hill will get the overall standings if there was a standing, so he would be the champion of the series if they did crown a champion. I just want to note he finished within the top 5 of every race, so the consistency from him really showed. Ryan Preece, a coveted wheel and modified driver that did turn NASCAR a few years ago, he really did well on the short tracks, obviously. And then I like to see the return of Parker Kligerman, a noted NASCAR NBC reporter now, who does a little bit of iRacing work with them and then also reports for them. But I love to see him. I thought he was a great driver back in the day who didn't really get in a lot of good equipment, but still had the skill set and the personality to be in NASCAR. I really liked it. When I raced iRacing, I really enjoyed it. I do miss it from my point of view, but I'm glad people got to see the new side of racing that is simulation racing. So I'm really happy, and I hope iRacing really got some exposure due to this.
Yeah, and I think it definitely did for sure. Now, switching gears to a more somber note, we learned this past week that one of the founding members of the Wood Brothers racing team, Ray Lee Wood, passed away at age 92. Obviously, a big impact on motorsports. He not just NASCAR with Wood Brothers Racing, but he had history with the Indianapolis 500, all through all racing series. But what were your thoughts when you heard that Ray Lee Wood had passed away?
I was obviously it shook the NASCAR world, and obviously he was a key member of making the original Wood Brothers Racing group. Of course, that's the longest team in NASCAR history, so obviously that's a staple in the NASCAR community. I noted that he won the owners championship in 1963 with the group. He was the one that was marked down with the name of the original owner of the group. So just to show how big he was in the racing. It really helped out that we had John Wood, his grandson, or the grandson of Glenn Wood, in the race this past weekend in North Wilkesboro. But thoughts and prayers go out to that group and that racing team.
Absolutely. And since debuting in 1950, their first race was 1953 at Martinsville. They won 99 total Cup Series races, 120 total pole positions, 119 of those in the Cup Series and 1 in the Craftsman Series. Definitely a big loss to the racing world. Now, NASCAR Heat 5 set to be released on July 7th. The trailer came out just this past week, and like a lot of people, I was not too impressed with it at all.
Yeah, I don't think many were too pleased with the release of it. The details that they did give us through multiple sources where there going to be minor updates with the system. The biggest thing that they tried to show off was Tony Stewart being as a spotter if you needed him to in the series, which obviously that's awesome to have in the game. But still, one thing I do note that I think this is because of the new release of the new gen consoles next winter. I think that's why NASCAR Heat 5 doesn't really have any of the features that people were looking for. But expect to have a better game come out in NASCAR Heat 6. They did talk about leaving the current engine that they use for the graphics and everything that makes the racing. So I think NASCAR Heat 6 will definitely be something to look at. I think Heat 5 is just a little benchmark or a little step to get to Heat 6. But if you're interested and want to get the game, obviously go ahead and support them, and that'll be out on July 7th.
I know I will be, but I would have liked to have seen something like what they did with NASCAR 07 or NASCAR Thunder 04 or 2003, where you had the paint studio, where you could you weren't limited to what schemes you could paint. You could really make your own schemes and place the logos where you wanted them to be. And I know a lot of people really wanted that, and they did not. They did not include that, unfortunately. Now, Chicagoland Speedway, we will get into a little bit the readjustment with the schedule, but before that, zoning and development projects being announced this past week as well for Chicagoland Speedway. What could this mean for the track's future?
Yeah, so there was kind of a lot of rumors going on around social media. NASCAR Report released something, a big news group that's on the side of NASCAR. But basically, there were reports out of a planning meeting that happened on April 16th from the planning division of the city that Chicagoland is in, that they wanted to sell some of the land around Chicagoland Speedway or start developing the current land that is on the site. The picture that was released included zoning maps that included the current track that really alarmed some of the fans in the area. Especially the fact that turns 3 and 4 were all marked in that plans. There was a future document release that just showed that they wouldn't be using that zoning area. But basically, any unused land or parking lots for overflow parking will now become industrial complex. Not big news, but the fact that there was those rumors going around about the track, especially after the fact that I think racing has improved at that facility in the past couple of years. I know taking away their playoff race really did hurt them. But I've been to that track. I really like the track. I saw a truck series race probably back in 2013, maybe an off race. Just the truck series. I thought it was a good facility, and I had a lot of fun there. So I really would miss the track if it did leave.
Yeah, hashtag bring back the orange. I remember they used to have the giant orange between turns 3 and 4, and one year it actually broke loose and started rolling down the track.
Yeah, the weird thing is that track is in the middle of nowhere. It is not. It's. I would say we've stayed in Chicago when I went to that race, and it was roughly an hour to hour 30 outside of the city. Don't quote me on that. But you get out there and it's farmland, and the harvest moon was out that night, and it's a great place, a great track, and I'm happy that it'll be still in the schedule.
All right. Now, taking a look at the schedule, we had some schedule changes announced last week. Chicagoland and Sonoma will both lose their races this season. Richmond will lose their spring race, but they will still have their playoff race, which will take place on September 12th. And this is not going to be the end of the schedule adjustments, is it, Zach?
No, NASCAR released that they expect future adjustments to continue to occur. Of course, they only released 2 weeks of schedule adjustments so far. But the weird thing is that the whole Chicagoland Speedway planning thing came right after the fact that they did realign the schedule and inform us that Chicagoland would not be on the schedule. The whole Sonoma thing is they couldn't really get they didn't really think they would be able to get out racing there, especially with all the current bans due to COVID-19, and they didn't know when that was going to end. So obviously Sonoma is kind of a drop. I really like the course layout that they moved to last year, and it sucks that we won't have some road course racing expected that we usually have. But Richmond, another short track. I'm happy they keep their fall race, of course. But this is kind of expected right now, especially with all the things going on. So hopefully this won't cause too much hurt to the fan base. But
And one thing to mention, full refunds will be issued to race fans, and these changes include the Xfinity and Truck Series races as well. All right, so this weekend we are back to live racing, actually behind the wheel, Sunday, May 17th, 3:30 on Fox, 400 miles, 293 laps, and 2 stages at Darlington. Talk to me about that, Zach.
all right, so we have, you talked about the 400 miles, the 2 stages of 90 laps and 185 laps. I noted last year's winner, Eric Jones. Of course, he'll be back in the lineup in that number 20 car. Entry list notables that I would like to talk about. We talked about last episode, Ryan Newman coming back from his injury. We talked about Matt Kenseth hopping in the 42 car. Credit One Bank will be on that car. And then a new one is TBR Racing, Tommy Baldwin Racing. We haven't talked about that name in a
Wow.
while.
Wow.
That is something that I did not expect to come out of this weekend's news. I'm going to be honest with you.
Yeah,
And
no, I don't think anybody did. It's been a long time since you heard the name Tommy Baldwin around a racetrack.
and especially the fact that I just remember that Golden Corral car trying to make the Daytona 500 years ago, and that Clint Boyer interview that we all seem to love. But Josh Bilicki will be into that car. Josh Bilicki is usually in the Nationwide or Xfinity Series, excuse me. But they will be returning that number 7 car this weekend. I think Cravely is on the car. That's the sponsor that has been announced in the entry list found on MRN.com. But I'm really excited for this weekend. I also want to talk about BJ McLeod will also return in the 78 car. He didn't race the other races besides the Daytona 500, which he finished 38th in. One thing I did want to point out there is this will be a full 40 car field compared to the 38 car fields that we have seen recently, other than the Daytona 500. So we'll have a full set of cars out there for this Darlington race. But I'm really excited to see what's going to happen.
All right, as am I. It's going to be good to get back to racing, and it's going to be a lot of racing these next few weeks. And with that being said, we will actually be releasing episode 3 of the Pitcast early. It will be on Monday, May 18th, so the day after the Darlington race. We will be recapping the events of the weekend at Darlington and looking forward to the upcoming races at Charlotte and at Darlington as well. Be sure to follow us on social media. Zach, your Twitter?
Zach6.
And my Twitter, of course, Ben_Kinney, WTOP. And, of course, T Pitcast on Twitter for the show. Zach, we'll see you on Monday.
Yeah, I can't wait to see you. Big race weekend. We'll see you on Monday, Ben.
All right, that'll do it for this episode of the Pitcast. Be sure to like and subscribe for the latest episodes. We'll see you on Monday.